Hi there, this is Kristen of Kristen Taylor Consulting, and thank you for taking some time to tune in. So, what I want to talk to you about today is emotional regulation, specifically down regulating in the face of stress and fear. So, I think it's safe to say that we would all, in the face of stress or fear or emotional spirals, like to have the ability to have greater agency and control over our own physiological response. I think that is safe to say. And that's what I'm going to teach you today. So, in as much as our worlds can be very chaotic and triggering, and there are a lot of demands and pressure, we can't control those things, but we can have a greater sense of, not a huge fan of the word control, but a greater sense of impact and resilience, emotional resilience in the face of our response. So what I'd like to start with is explaining our physiology, just very briefly in terms of the neuroscience of the stress response. And I will be teaching you the relaxation response so that you can very intentionally engage the relaxation response in your body, in your physiology, so that you can reshape your response and your thoughts when stress or pressure or anything that hooks you happens in your life, which happens to a lot of us very frequently. And it's truly just a breathing technique that engages the relaxation response in response to the stress response. Okay. So, what I want to start with is explaining that fight or flight or freeze response. It happens in our amygdala, which is part of the limbic system in our brain, and it's really the emotion center of the brain. Something happens, the emotions light up, our physiology works in accordance with that, and it's really just biology. But what happens for many of us is that in response to this physiological response, the biology, the amygdala lighting up, the physiological response, the fight or flight response, we create stories. This is happening in my body, my heart is pounding, my hands are clammy, whatever it is that is happening for you. Then we create disempowered stories about who we are and what is possible. So I want to break this down and give you the keys and the tools and the practices to interrupt that. So you can think of that as an amygdala hijack. Something happens, the amygdala lights up, our autonomic nervous system activates. So there are two branches of our autonomic nervous system. There is the sympathetic and there is the parasympathetic. The sympathetic upregulates us. Like if you were going to run a sprint, you want to engage the sympathetic nervous system, right? You're going to give a presentation and you want to feel animated and inspired and have a little boost of energy. That's the heart rate going up, that's the blood pressure going up, that's the heightened arousal state to get the energy up regulated, okay? Then there is the parasympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system, and that is down regulating. You can think of it as like pedals in a car. The sympathetic is the gas, and the parasympathetic to down regulate, that's the brake. And often in our hectic worlds, our modern lives, we need to learn how to down regulate more intentionally and more frequently so that we can begin to rewire our response to more naturally activate the relaxation response when the gas is being pumped by circumstances outside of you and your habituated way of response, which often is to upregulate in the face of stress, which is very normal, right? Okay, so this is the amygdala hijack. We get into the emotion center of our brain. We're activating that fight, flight, or freeze. And then we have the autonomic nervous system. And in the face of stress, we upregulate by engaging the sympathetic nervous system. And I'm going to teach you how to downregulate by engaging the parasympathetic. So here's the deal. When we inhale, the sympathetic nervous system is activated. Our heart rate goes up. Our blood pressure goes up. When we exhale, our parasympathetic nervous system is engaged. That's the lowering of the heart rate. That's the lowering of the blood pressure. That's more the digestive response. In a later video, I'll talk to you about polyvagal theory, which will even add more tools to what you can do in the face of stress. But for now, I'm going to teach you what is called ratio breathing to down regulate. So normally when we're breathing, it's kind of an even balance of inhale versus exhale. When we are stressed out and getting into that stress response and getting into that engagement of an emotional spiral, people say, breathe, breathe, breathe. Yeah, well, you're breathing, but you're most likely inhaling more frequently than you are exhaling. We're going to reverse that through ratio breathing. So the ratio is fewer beats, counts of inhaling and more counts of exhaling through breathing cycle. So here we go. I'm going to explain it a bit more. It's very simple, but takes a lot of explanation. It's breathing in through the nose with closed mouth and out through the mouth, but through pursed lips, almost like you're whistling or breathing through a straw. And what that does is that it slows down the exhale. And remember, when you are exhaling, particularly slowly, you are pumping the brakes on your autonomic nervous system response and engaging the relaxation response, which is the parasympathetic nervous system. So there's no magic ratio. You can find your own. What I find works for me is inhaling for a count of 4 and exhaling for a count of 8. So I double it. You might do 3 and 5. You might do 5 and 12. You can find what works best for you in terms of your own natural rhythm, as long as the ratio is fewer inhale time, longer exhale time. So I'm going to show what this looks like. It looks a little silly, but it works, and that's the most important thing. And what you'll notice is that when I am exhaling through my mouth, it is through pursed lips. Sometimes people call this straw breathing, as if I'm exhaling through a straw. You even get a straw if you want. You don't need one, okay? So I'm going to demonstrate. Actually, let's just do this. Let's do it once together. And let's try 4 inhales through the nose and 8 exhales through the mouth. Try it with me if you will. Here we go. Through the nose. Just tune in. How does that feel? Just one count. Some people find that even just one breath cycle, and they start to feel a little bit of the relaxation response engage in their own bodies. I certainly do. Okay? But you can do it for 5 breath cycles, 10 breath cycles, 20 breath cycles. And here's the thing, the more frequently you practice it, even when you are not stressed, the more your body, and this is neuroplasticity, and you can look that up in another video. Neuroplasticity is literally that your brain is malleable and changeable rather than fixed. So your body is being trained to know how to engage the relaxation cycle. Let's do 4 breath cycles. Again, this is pumping the brakes to down regulate. In through the nose, out through the mouth. I'm going to do it 4 times. I invite you to do it with me, finding your own ratio. I will start with 4 and 8. We're going to do it 4 times, starting with inhaling. That was 1. Let's do 2. That was 2. Let's do 3, and it's a deep inhale. And lastly, 4. Now I invite you to just tune in with yourself now that you've done 4 breath cycles. Sometimes that's all it takes. I, for one, and so many people I've worked with, and so many people across the world practice ratio or straw breathing to engage the relaxation response. And then what you have done, I didn't tell you this cool thing, is that engaging and down regulating by engaging the parasympathetic nervous system is that you've moved from the amygdala, which truly is, biologically speaking, the most primitive part of our brain, to sort of dial down the light of that activation. Through engaging the parasympathetic nervous system, you've allowed your thoughts then to move to your prefrontal cortex. That's the more evolved part of your brain, where you have expansive thinking, executive function, you're resourceful, you're creative, you're innovative, you have greater perspective. And in those moments, you can take what was the trigger, the pressure situation, the stress, whether it's an email, a conversation, a deadline, whatever is happening for you, the need to perform in whatever way comes up for you in your life. And now in your prefrontal cortex, you can tell yourself a different story. Yes, this is hard. I've done hard. I have many resources to bear, to share, and here is how I want to thoughtfully move towards that opportunity, that challenge, that obstacle. That's your prefrontal cortex in action, rather than your amygdala, which says, I'm not enough, I'm scared, what if I blow it, right? The feeling that your life is in peril, even though a saber-toothed tiger is not literally charging you, your brain doesn't know the difference. You've changed from the amygdala, primitive fight or flight, to prefrontal cortex, creating a new path forward and less stress. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you find it helpful, and please practice. The more you do it in states of relaxation, the more you will be able to engage it in those moments when the stress response engages and presents itself as an opportunity for your learning. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye.